Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Emergency Traffic, where we explore the tragic line of duty deaths of firefighters and paramedics to learn from these ultimate sacrifices. These podcasts are a brief synopsis of the events we have obtained from official reports and published stories. We want to provide an easy and convenient method for today's firefighters to quickly learn lessons of past LODDs and possibly prevent them from happening again. Thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate your attention. We are slowly growing in popularity, so please tell your friends, tell your coworkers, and spread the knowledge. You can follow us on Twitter at Podcast Traffic, on Facebook, or email us with your comments and thoughts at emergencytrafficpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher, so please give us a thumbs up or some stars if you like the podcast. I am Doug, one of the hosts of the show, joined today by Paul and Dirk. Hello, Paul and Dirk. How are you?
Hi there. I'm well. How are you, Doug?
I'm okay. I'm getting over a cold, so forgive me if you hear the odd cough or sniffle or whatever, but hopefully I make it through. And yeah, tomorrow I'm heading off to Kelowna for some family reunion, but yeah, I'm good.
Nice to have you hosting. We'll change it around. We'll keep doing that. Hopefully it works out. So look forward to doing a lot more of them.
Dirk, how are things?
Oh, yeah, I'm here too. Sorry about that. I was mesmerized here. Yeah, nice to be back again. And hopefully we'll have entertaining and informative 30 minutes to 60 minutes here.
All right, well, it's going to be a long episode. Get out of here. So today's episode, we're going to discuss a commercial structure fire that happened on May 13th, 2013, that tragically resulted in line-of-duty death of 4 career firefighters. The career fire department involved in this incident serves a city of 2.1 million people, which is the 4th largest city and the 3rd largest fire department in the United States. It's rated by the Insurance Services Office, ISO, as a Class 1 fire department and is internationally accredited department through the Commission on Fire Accreditation International, or CFAI. The urban population is almost 5 million residents, and the metro population is over 6 million residents. The city is about 650 square miles, which is 634 on land and about 22 square miles of water. The fire department is an all-hazards fire department providing aircraft rescue firefighting, or ARF, for 2 large commercial airports. There's also an automatic aid, which Paul loves, with 1 career fire department and 1 volunteer fire department, which are located within the entities of the municipality. They're also part of a regional mutual aid pack, which covers transportation emergencies in the greater metropolitan area. The fire department has about 4,000 personnel, which about 3,800 are uniformed members. The daily minimum staffing for the emergency response division is 832. The emergency response division is divided into 2 geographic divisions, north and south. There's a deputy chief in charge of each division on each shift. The South Division has 13 districts or battalions, including the rescue and hazmat districts. The North Division has 11 districts, including safety and ARF. The department operates like most major departments: administration, fire marshal office, training academy, arson division, logistics center. They have their own maintenance shop and the fire operations division. The emergency response division directs all fire suppression, special operations, and emergency medical services. So it's a combined integrated fire department. They have 92 fire stations, firehouses, 87 engine companies, 37 ladder or truck companies, including 5 tower ladders, 56 basic life support ambulances, which have an EMTB and an EMTB firefighter and an EMTB engineer, 34 medic units, which are ALS with 1 firefighter paramedic and 1 engineer paramedic, 11 squads, which are staffed with our non-transport ALS units with 1 firefighter paramedic and 1 engineer paramedic. They also have 3 rescue companies, including 1 heavy rescue and 3 safety officers. The department, on the radio, when they're talking, they use the call signs based on where you ride in the truck. So the officer is A, the right seat is B, left jump seat C, and the engineer operator is D. So it starts with the officer and goes clockwise around the truck. The minimum staffing on each engine, ladder, and rescue is an officer, which is a senior captain or a captain, an engineer, and 2 firefighters. Each district is a district chief and an incident command technician. So it's a very well-staffed fire department with the right number of people on each rig. In my opinion, at least 4.
Yeah, not understaffed like so many departments are with 2 or 3 people on a rig. So good.
Well, and 4 guys on a rig plus a chief's aide, really, on every. I mean, that's what lots of departments strive for,
good.
right?
Yeah.
So in 2013, the fire department responded just under 300,000 incidents. Most of them were EMS, about 40,000 fire. Average response time was about 6 minutes for EMS and 5.5 for a fire. So once you're selected as a candidate, the firefighter will begin a 15-month probation period with the fire department. That's longer than most I've heard of. 9-month recruit training program at the fire department's training academy, which again, that's a long time. The training consists of the Texas Commission of Fire Protection Basic Fire Suppression Curriculum. That's a mouthful. Which is about 468 hours of training. It covers all of the NFPA qualifications for 1001. The firefighter also gets Emergency Medical Technician Basic or EMTB certification. This is something that I haven't seen on very many fire departments, where upon completion of recruit school, a firefighter becomes a probationary firefighter as an assigned phase 1, 2 months with an engine, 2 months with a truck, and 2 months on EMS, which is kind of a nice spread out of.
Good idea. Yeah, you get a variety of experience. That's cool.
Yeah. So once they're on probation, they are promoted to the rank of firefighter. The department requires that each firefighter receives 2 hours of continuing education unit, 1 hour of risk management training, and 24 hours of in-service training per month. They utilize district training officers to assist this in-service training, and as well as assuring that probationary firefighters are obtaining the proper training during their 6-month period in the emergency response division. The Texas State Fire Commission requires 20 hours of continuing education per year, and the ISO requires 8 hours plus 8 multi-company drills per year. So that's a lot of training for while you're in service. Dirk?
I got a question, Doug. This is pretty impressive. Is that up to date? So this is after that line of duty death we'll be talking about, or is it before?
I don't know the exact answer, but I'm assuming it was before and after, because this is out of the NIOSH report where they just give an overview of the fire department. So I'm assuming that was before the incident and after the incident where they do all this.
Okay.
And it's even better. It says that they conduct live fire training twice per year at the fire academy, compliant with NFPA 1403. Each training evolution is basically a first alarm assignment with 4 engine companies, 2 ladders, a medic, and a chief. I mean, that's a lot of guys there doing the training, and very realistic. Certification program for all emergency operators, which is a tested position, which is pretty common in the United States. 56-hour training, which complies with NFPA 1002. And the department pays for the state certification process through the Texas State Fire Commission. They also provide an officer development program for members, which is part of the department's career path, plus the opportunity to acquire a college degree. This process uses the curriculum from the National Fire Academy, local community colleges, various colleges, universities, and continuing ed programs. So training is not taken lightly in this fire department, and it's nice to see. I mean, that's almost the gold standard for everyone else to get, really.
Probably why they're a class 1 department, right? They got lots of good training. So it's interesting to see a department with such good training have an incident such as this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Maybe this all happened after, because we're talking about 2013. That's quite a while ago. So this might have been actually an after effect of line of duty deaths. And I heard the city has.
Oh, lost your volume. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, so the Office of Emergency Communications, which is the city's dispatcher communications center. Receives all the call for fire and EMS and law enforcement. They immediately dispatch the appropriate personnel and equipment to the incident. They record information. I mean, they do dispatch. They're staffed by uniformed fire department members for the fire and EMS side. So the running cards, I guess, for a reported fire, for a residential structure fire, 3 engines, 2 ladders, an ambulance, a medic, and 2 district chiefs. Commercial structure fire, they basically add an extra engine. A high-rise fire is 6 engines, 4 ladders, a rescue company, a medic, and 2 safety officers. And assuming a 111, which would be any of those confirmed to be a working fire, would add 1 more engine, 1 more ladder, 1 rescue, and 1 more chief. Second alarm is 4 engines, 2 ladders, a heavy rescue, a medic, a safety officer, an air unit, a rehab unit, 2 more district chiefs, the deputy chief, shift supervisor, an EMS supervisor, and a command man. So it's lots of resources thrown at fires, and I'm sure most of the time it's works out well for them. I'm sure lots of departments would be jealous to have that many resources to throw at a fire.
Yes, that's good. And I've worked with these guys in my past life, and they're very aggressive with equipment and training and stuff. I remember that back from the late 90s, early 2000s. Is they weren't shy about getting the best stuff.
Yeah, that's good. So the department typically employs a fast attack offensive operations at a structure fire. Generally, fast attack or offensive operations, this department involved the first due engine company attacking the fire with a hose line charged with water from the engine's booster tank while the water supply is being established from the hydrant. Very aggressive. The first due engine company searches for possible victims in the immediate area. The first due ladder company initiates ventilation procedures. The second due engine company is to pull a second hose line to back up the first due engine company. So maybe the first due engine company driver is responsible for establishing water supply. That doesn't really say, but
you would have 2, right, from the second engine.
Yeah,
the driver,
sure,
so you would have 2 drivers. Yeah.
The second due ladder company assists the first in engine with search and rescue operations. Third due engine is assigned as RIT, which I like, having a designated company assigned as RIT. Other arrival units just basically jump in where needed, establishing water supply, backing up the initial engine company, search and rescue, RIT, assist with accountability and other duties as designated by the incident commander. So that's the overview of the fire department.
Good.
Very
Yeah,
impressive. Very impressive.
A leading department for sure.
Yeah, sounds like it for sure. Progressive and very well supported by their city, it sounds like. So the incident in question here, May 31st, 2013, a 35-year-old career captain, a 41-year-old career engineer operator, a 29-year-old career firefighter, and a 24-year-old career firefighter were killed when the roof of a restaurant collapsed on them during firefighting operations. The captain was assigned to engine 51, the engineer operator assigned to ladder 51, but detailed to engine 51 and assigned to the left jump seat, which is 51, engine 51B. The 2 firefighters were assigned to engine 68. So 1207, OEC dispatched 4 engines, 2 ladders, 2 district chiefs, a safety officer, and a medic for a structure fire in a restaurant. The first due engine, engine 51, reported heavy smoke showing while en route, which was acknowledged by District Chief 68. District Chief 68 asked for a 111 working fire dispatch from the freeway due to heavy smoke showing. So he wasn't on scene yet and upgraded their response, which is forward thinking. Upon arrival, which was 4 minutes after dispatch, the captain of engine 51 radioed his size up, stating they had a working fire in a restaurant with heavy smoke showing plus a temperature reading from his thermal imager. Engine 51 made an offensive attack from the alpha side with a 2.5-inch pre-connected hose line in the restaurant. Dispatch dispatched a 111 for a different event which was acknowledged by the District Chief 68. Seemed like there was a little bit of confusion that he might have thought that that was the dispatch for his fire, but it wasn't. So Chief 68 arrived on scene, established command. Engine 51 radioed the second due engine that they needed a supply line. Dispatch informed command that the previous 111 was for a different event and dispatched the 111 for this event, sending another chief, another engine, another ladder, and a heavy rescue. 5 minutes after, a 211 or second alarm was ordered by command. This was acknowledged by dispatch and sent an additional 2 chiefs, 4 more engines, 2 ladders. One of them was mutual aid, another rescue, and another safety officer. So 6 minutes after Engine 51 entered the building, the operator called Engine 51's captain and told him they were down to a quarter tank of water. Command ordered Engine 51 out of the building until a supply line was established. Engine 51 acknowledged and reported out of the building. Engine 68 had arrived on scene, and he laid 2 4-inch supply lines from Engine 51 to a hydrant east of the fire building on the feeder or the service road beside the freeway this restaurant was next to. Ladder 68 was ordered to the roof to cut a hole between the main fire building and the motel. Once Engine 51 had established water supply, Engine 51's crew re-entered the building. Engine 68 was ordered to back up Engine 51 on the 2.5-inch hose line. Engine 82, which was the 4th due engine, was also assigned to fire attack. Command confirmed with Engine 60 that they had been assigned RIT and was told by the captain that Engine 60 had established RIT.
So just to get a picture in people's minds, Doug, this building was sort of a T shape, I think, really, where the frontage or the alpha side was sort of a T with a restaurant on one arm of the T, and then the main lobby of this hotel or whatever was in the center. I don't know what was on the other side of the T. And then there was hotel in behind, like rooms and meeting rooms and banquet rooms and stuff. Is that correct?
That's what I believe. Yep, that's true.
I think there was a sports bar or something on the other side there.
Oh, okay.
On the other end of the T, I thought I saw, in the pictures there was like a sports bar.
And it was really, really long, right? Really deep. The T went down like several hundred feet in behind all the banquet rooms and everything. So it was hard to get to the backside.
And it was part of a complex of about 7 buildings that the hotel was all part of. Yeah, but just the one building was involved in the fire. But
yeah, I think you're gonna go into great details of the building because that's pretty important here, I think.
So, yeah, Engine 82 was pulling a 1 3/4 hose line to the front doorway that Engine 51 had entered, a backup line, when the collapse occurred. Engine 82's captain called a mayday, saying, "We have a roof collapse, mayday, roof collapse, Engine 51 is inside." Command deployed Engine 60, the RIT team, and ordered a 311 third alarm, which dispatch sent 2 district chiefs, 4 more engines, and 2 ladders. So lots of resources coming. So the roof collapsed at 12:23, which was 12 minutes after Engine 51 had arrived on scene and 15.5 minutes after the initial dispatch. The firefighter from Engine 51 was at the front doorway and was pushed out of the building by the collapse. District Chief 28, who had been assigned the Alpha Division, was now leading the RIT operation. Engine 48 was assigned secondary RIT. Rescue 10, Ladder 51 arrived and were also assigned RIT, reporting to District 28. 28, yep. Command asked for another channel for fire ground operations, and dispatch advised that TAC channel 12 could be used while the Mayday operations would stay on TAC channel 11.
So they stayed on the same channel, which we all agree with is don't change channels for the guys that are in a Mayday, right?
Yeah. If anybody's going to change, it should be everybody else that's not involved.
Everybody else. Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Rescue 11 arrived on scene and was assigned to help Rescue 10 with the Mayday. Dispatch transmitted a 4th alarm, which is 2 more district chiefs, 4 more engines, 2 more ladders. All companies on the 3rd and 4th alarms were told to go to TAC channel 12 and stage on the feeder road. 12:39, which is 16 minutes after the collapse in the Mayday, Rescue 10 reported to Alpha Division, which is Chief District 28. They had found 2 pinned by a windowsill and needed someone to start cutting the roof away from them. Ladder 69 advised that they are able to cut through. Now the roof was concrete shingles. I don't.
It was clay tiles.
Tile.
Well, terracotta tiles, which is very popular in the southern United States.
Yeah.
Right?
But probably not hard to get. They're probably not easy to get through, to get under.
You got to smash them with a sledgehammer or a end of an axe first to get them to break, and then sweep them away, and they get to the underneath the whatever.
So command was transferred to District 21, with District 68 reassigned to manage the rescue group. At 12:52, the Alpha Division advised command that one firefighter, the captain of Engine 68, has been removed from the building. Shift Commander 37, which is the South Division Command, assumed command and reassigned District 21 to operations. At 12:59, Engine 508 advises they have located a missing firefighter from Engine 51. During the RIT operations, a secondary wall collapse occurred, injuring several members of the rescue group. Firefighters were able to pick the wall up off the injured firefighters, who were removed and treated by EMS. At 13:04, the firefighter that Engine 508 had located was removed from the interior. Command at this time changed the action plan from rescue to recovery, which I can imagine is a very hard decision to make and a very hard thing to hear from everybody involved on the radio.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, okay, guys, this isn't going to go the way we want it to. That'd be tough. It's kind of like the Worcester, Mass guy.
Yeah, I was just going to say
saying,
that.
okay, nobody else goes in today.
Yeah, which everybody agrees that guy saved a lot of lives with that fire.
Right.
By saying no one else goes in. Yep.
Right. Same as Pfeiffer in the World Trade Center. Time to get out, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the tremendous efforts of the rescue group, a successful RIT operation was conducted. The captain of Engine 68 was located and removed from the structure by the rescue group and transported to a local hospital. The engineer operator from Engine 51, who was riding Engine 51B, the jump seat, was removed from the structure by the rescue group and later died in a local hospital. A search continued for the captain of Engine 51 and the 2 firefighters from Engine 68. Approximately 2 hours after the collapse, the body of the captain from Engine 51 was located on top of the restaurant roof debris. The 2 firefighters from Engine 68 were discovered underneath the restaurant roof debris. The officer and 2 firefighters were pronounced dead at the scene. Note, the captain of Engine 68 died on March 7, 2017 from complications from the severe injuries suffered in the restaurant fire on May 31st, 2013. So he lived for almost 4 more years.
There's lots of social media and stuff about him.
I followed him on social media there for quite a while, and he was doing better, and then they had to move because he lost, I think, both legs, I think an arm. So the burns were pretty severe. It was just, he wasn't doing well. And unfortunately he succumbed. So basically it was not 4 line of duty deaths, it was basically 5. COVID.
So, do they think that the captain that they found on top of the roof debris was kind of going back or trying to get out or trying to search for his people? It's kind of odd that 2 of the firefighters were under roof debris and he was on top. But I don't know. Did it say anything about that in the reports?
I didn't see
anything.
anything.
I didn't see anything either.
It's only speculation about why they're. Who knows? I mean, he could have been knocked down by something else, or who knows?
Just by looking at it, that this Engine 68 was assigned as backup, it would make sense that they were further back. That's why the captain was probably closer, and he was the first one that was recovered.
Right.
And then there was one Engine 51 firefighter that got blowing out of the building from the roof collapse.
Yeah, he was at the doorway or whatever. Yeah. I remember watching this live at work. I was
me too.
Deputy chief, and we were like, oh my gosh, look at this video, and we'll share some links to that in Twitter and Facebook when we post this podcast.
Yeah, I think you lost my audio there for a second, but I was saying that going to recovery during the operations. after already a secondary wall collapse occurred. Yeah, it's hard, but really it proved that, at this point, it should be a recovery, and the safety of everybody involved in the rescue operation should be the priority. So yeah, but
Yeah, for sure.
it is a tough call for sure. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay, back to you, Doug.
All right. So there was obviously a huge investigation into this incident, and some of the contributing factors were determined to be that the department's arson bureau determined the fire had started 3 hours prior to the 911 call and had a chance to spread to the area above the first floor. So, I mean, there was an office and open area on the second floor of the hotel, and this open void space was accessible through the second floor office. This area went from the Bravo side to the Delta side, and at least to the sports bar. The ATF agents, or Alcohol Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, United States, interviewed maintenance workers that had performed work and had accessed the area. This open void space provided an avenue for fire spread. It's got to be hard when you're the first arriving engine and you don't know the fire was burning for 3 hours, right? You think it's a small fire contained to one room or whatever. So you make your
And it's
entry.
kind of, yeah, and it's kind of defense of the building, because we will see like how often it was changed and retrofitted and all this stuff, and just reading through the timeline there, you think that building collapsed pretty fast, but considering it was burning for 3 hours,
Yeah,
it basically
yeah.
lasted for almost 3.5 hours. So
Yeah, it
that's
seems pretty fast
impressive.
it seems fast that it collapsed in 15 minutes, but it actually collapsed in 3 hours and 15 minutes. So
Yeah, and I've been
if
to a few fires. I'm sure you guys have too, where you think you have a hidden fire someplace, you can't find it, it's burning. You're wondering how it's impacting the building and what's going to happen. They didn't even have that thought. I mean, they were there and it was burning right now. They didn't even know that it had been burning for hours before. They went in. I think they did say that they did poke the ceiling tiles and stuff as they were going in to look above them, but they didn't use the tick in the ceiling area. So maybe they just couldn't see. It was too smoky, whatever. There was wind, of course, and smoke, which you're going to get into. So they all maybe had have an impact on their decision-making process throughout this incident.
So another factor was the construction of the building, more so the alterations to the building. The building was built in the 1960s. So from 1966 to 2013, there was different building materials, structural components, roof lines added to the original building footprint. Various additions were added or areas expanded based on the varying gable roofs observed from aerial views of the building. The presence of infill flat roofs appeared to have been integrated with existing building components and roof lines. Large and small area gable-style roofs were common, with engineered wood truss systems, engineered structural systems being incorporated along with flat roofs constructed on both wood and non-combustible materials, load-bearing walls, steel beams, and columns and masonry. Features. So this was a hodgepodge of a building where it was renovated and changed, and I'm sure, being a hotel and restaurants and all that, as new owners or new management wanted to change the look to keep up with the times, they just added to it or put new roofs on top of the old roof. So adding the concrete roof tiles increased the roof's weight by 13 pounds per square foot, which was a 76% increase. So they determined this would have an effect on the time before collapse during a fire. Obviously, a heavier roof is more likely to have a catastrophic failure in a shorter time span. That makes sense. Any comments on the building construction there, fellas?
Yeah, I got one, Doug. We always say, like, most of those line of duty desks, if the building was involved, that we should study more on building construction. But reading through this is like you would have to study building construction. You have to be an engineer just to figure this one out. And then imagine how a fire would affect all those different kinds of roof constructions, building material, all this stuff. It's super hard. Plus the 3 hours pre-burn time, basically. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we said we should be better, but at these points, I'm kind of like, how much can you study and how can you predict this?
Well, and it sounds like this building had every different type of construction you could have, all mixed into one building. So it would have been
Lots of voids,
and
lots of stuff. And
yeah,
there wasn't a pre-plan because of the risk profile of the restaurant
sure.
being separate from the rest of the building, according to the building and inspection department. You know, they didn't realize all of, you know, the risk that was there.
So they also determined that this was a wind impacted fire. The front of the building, the Alpha side, faced northwest. Engine 51 arrived on scene and entered the restaurant through the front door of the restaurant, which was the northwest side. This entry point would become Division Alpha. It is believed that the wind coming from the southwest at a constant speed of 17 plus miles per hour, gusting to 23 miles per hour, clearly affected the tactics that took place at the beginning of the fire. Another theory is that the high-rise structure, the commercial hotel located to the southwest of the fire building, also created a windbreak. This in turn forced high wind patterns to be channeled around both sides of the structure. The wind then was funneled down towards the hotel directly into Division Charlie. So they were entering the exhaust point of the chimney, really.
Yeah, and from all these studies that we're doing and podcasts, we know that going in the chimney often has a negative effect on the survivability of that area.
So during the initial attack and well into the rescue, the direction of these strong winds made Division Charlie the intake side of the structure and placed Division Alpha as the exhaust point, like we just said. The smoke was blowing across the fire ground vertically, limiting the visibility of members conducting the fire attack, ventilation, and rescue. Crews were faced with extreme heat and smoke conditions that would continue to increase and hamper their efforts. And the report does have a picture of the freeway outside this place. The smoke was blowing right across the freeway. You can't even see the cars on the road. So the other contributing factor that they didn't talk much about was
it's
that
a wide freeway. I've driven down there many times.
Everything's bigger in Texas, even the freeways.
Right.
It's a There. I mean, in the city, there are 2 million people. It's like some of the roads. I've been there too, and they're like 8 lanes going one way. So
right.
It's
plus
a service road, plus
right.
a parking lot. I mean, it's a big area. There was also a lack of a fire sprinkler system, so that obviously, although Home Depot approved that even if you have a sprinkler system here recently, you could still burn down a building.
That's going to be a whole other podcast.
That's going to be a new podcast. Yeah, absolutely.
Warehouses burning down once we get some more information. Yeah, that's on our current events portion of the podcast. We're now number 3 or 4 now with sprinklered warehouse type buildings burning to the ground.
Yeah.
No line of duty deaths so far, though.
Right. Nobody good. Inside. Yeah.
Well,
nobody inside.
I mean, we're getting sidetracked here, but that one, the Home Depot, very easily could have been a line of duty death. The chief ordered the guys out like minutes before the roof collapsed.
Good work by command there.
Good on him that we're not going to be doing a podcast about that fire now.
But this commander couldn't see it. Yeah. He was they were in the smoke. They didn't know what was going down.
Well, and it happened right when they went back in. It happened right at the beginning. I mean, it was,
and they couldn't talk because they had radio issues.
Yeah,
you'll get to it, right?
Yeah, that comes up in the recommendations, but it wasn't really mentioned in the report itself, right?
So, speaking of recommendations, some of the key recommendations that came out were: incident command should ensure the fireground strategy matches the conditions. So don't just go offensive at every single fire. You have to take into account wind or building construction or whatever, and have your fireground strategy match what you see, which I know is hard. You just want to get in there and go put the fire out. That's what we're there for. But it says fire department should. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
They talked. Are you going to get? They talked about the whole slicers thing. Locate the fire. Determine the flow path. Maybe don't go in the chimney. right? There was a door to the back of the restaurant in the kitchen area that didn't get access till 20 minutes after the fire, after the collapse, actually, when they finally assigned a team to the back of the building, and they went and opened that door and had a, that was an access point. Which there's similarities with that and the sofa fire.
The dog's got something to say as well.
Yeah.
The sofa fire in Phoenix, right, where they lost that firefighter in the back.
Well, this show is going to the dogs yet again, hey?
Yeah.
Another one of the recommendations, Dirk, was the fire department should review and update procedures on wind-driven fires, which obviously that's, but I mean, not being there, I don't know, wind felt or whatever, but I associate wind-driven fires lots with high-rise fires, not with a single restaurant. So it might not be in the back of your head, but it's something to think about when if it's a windy day, it affects the fire, right?
Yeah, I was actually just listening to a chief from Texas that talked about they consider every fire a wind-driven fire when there's wind. They go to a structure fire and there's wind, they consider a wind-driven fire. So they keep that already in mind, which side you want to approach it from, right? So yeah,
Right.
I think the mindset is changing.
Yeah.
There's been so many, right? There's been so many deaths. There's another one in Texas that we're going to do here one of these days with that lake house, and they went in and the windows failed just as they went inside, and we had the wind-driven fire event. Of course, the Back Bay fire we did last month, another wind-driven fire event. There's just so many of them. So yeah, luckily through the reports and the education and the training and the research, and why we're doing the podcast is just to make people think, don't always go in on the front side just because it's the front and that's where you're parked, right? Do your 360 or get a size up from the back for another crew, something, and go in with the wind at your back. It's going to protect you.
They also recommended that fire departments should integrate current fire behavior research developed by NIST and UL, which goes along with wind-driven fires. I mean, they're always doing this research, and it is hard to keep up with it and keep changing your tactics, but it's something that you have to strive to do. So the report also said it's easy to just say a defensive strategy should be employed in a fire that cannot be controlled with an offensive attack. Sorry. This incident had considerations unknown to the responding firefighters and officers that had caused the collapse of the structure. The following information on particular construction and alterations will give both experienced and developing fire officers and firefighters a better understanding of the considerations for risk assessment and the predictability of performance in similar buildings in their locality. The structures on the property were constructed in 1966, were built under adopted building codes that were in effect at the time. The structure on the property consisted of a motel, a restaurant, sports bar, consisting of more than 26,000 square feet. The restaurant and sports bar were one-story structures attached to a two-story facility which housed the lobby, offices, banquet rooms, and meeting rooms for the motel. The property had 7 standalone buildings that were two-story structures containing motel guest rooms. These buildings were not attached to the main fire building. So when you look at the timeline of events that we talked about, it seemed to me when command assigned that ladder company to go cut a hole before the two-story part of the building, he was saying, like, this is our line in the sand. We don't want it to get into the rest of the hotel with the meeting rooms and all that stuff. Little did he know there was already a void space created and the fire was already going way over there. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that fire had continued into that space, because of maybe there was a lack of a fire separation or something, or the thing was left open, maybe a hatch because they were working in the area, and then it got into that space. And of course, it went undetected. No alarm system in the building. They had pull stations. That was it. There was no monitoring. and of course no sprinklers, so that delayed. And of course, delayed response. It's going to be. It seems to be a factor. Same as Back Bay, wind-driven fire, delayed response. They tried to extinguish it themselves, then they left or something, or went next door, and then the maintenance guy came and opened the back door, and poof, fire in the building.
Yeah, I did read in this report, speaking of this, that the workers in the restaurant, I mean, I might get to it later. I can't remember if it's in there or not, but they kind of smelled something burning and didn't really do anything about it until they saw some black smoke coming out of the vent, and then they called the fire department. Of course, the fire department probably didn't know that, oh, we smelled burning 3 hours ago.
Right.
We waited till now to call you. So they were behind the 8 ball from the very get-go and didn't know it. So it's
and they took the 2.5 in with them right away, which is great.
Which is a good thing to do. Yeah.
Well, the 2.5's not going to last long.
It's a commercial structure, right? Commercial tactics for commercial buildings,
which is great. All that training they do, right?
Yeah.
We talked about all the training that they do. Big fire or possibly big fire, you bring big water. But yeah, like you said, Paul, it's tough to take a 2.5 off of a booster tank. You're going to drain your tank very quickly. You need a water supply for that. So
and that's fine. I mean, you try to make a knock. I mean, you dump your 500 gallons on the fire, and if it doesn't do anything, you'll pull out anyways. Like at that point, like hindsight, 2020. At that point, they might as well say, okay, we dumped 500 gallons. It didn't do anything. We might as well call this a defensive operation, right?
Yeah, and I bet you if command had been able to see what the conditions actually were, may have had a different perspective at that point, or if they'd had a perspective from the rear, those would have went into the decision making process, which like you said, even like 2020, and no comms, which is your next point.
Yeah, right? I was just going to say communication, I think, was a big problem there, so that might have contributed to that as well.
Yeah. So some of the changes reported to NIOSH by the fire department after this was. One of them, the communications and technology work group met with Motorola, who obviously supplied the radios, to voice concerns about several problems that were discovered during the restaurant fire. The radio code plug changes in the APX system reprogramming occurred. The emergency button was changed from a 1-second push to a 2-second push. The permission to talk time limit was shortened from 60 seconds to 30 seconds. So obviously they had some issues with their emergency buttons and maybe being pushed in error. I'm not sure.
Well, this is the first digital trunked radio systems, for radios we have today. These were the first versions. And there's so much programming involved that you can adjust stuff. So, if the emergency button is too easy to push, then it gets pushed. Of course, when the emergency button is pushed, it locks everybody else out and leaves your mic open. Same with the permission to talk. If it's waiting for 60 seconds of dead air before it lets you talk, well, then you're getting blocked off, like it says. And so they had to make a lot of changes on that to avoid these communication problems that we're not seeing as much today. In fact, there was a couple of reports out about digital radios and the fire service, and there was actually committees going on about how they're unsuitable for fire service and stuff. But the radio suppliers have stepped up and they've made them much better. I think they're still not maybe as let's say I don't know. I'm looking for the right word. As the non-digital systems, I mean, you don't have to have perfect conditions, but so. That's kind of how the radios they're getting better now.
So the first change was the communications and technology work group met with Motorola to voice concerns about several problems they had during the fire with the APX program needed to be reprogrammed because the emergency button was pushed too long, needed to go from a 1-second to a 2-second push, because it was getting pushed inadvertently, I assume, and locking out radio comms, where a 2-second push would be more of a, I mean to push this button kind of thing. The permission to talk time was also shortened from 60 seconds to 30 seconds. I guess they had some long-winded conversations that they wanted to shorten up. Yeah.
That was for the blank time to press your button. For it not to bonk you off, it was looking for 60 seconds between conversations, and they shortened it to 30 so that you wouldn't have as many bonks, which means the system says busy. And remember, like we were saying, these were the first digital trunked radio systems on the new public service or public safety networks, which we now have here as well. And the whole programming of these new radios is so critical to get the programming right. There actually was several papers saying how these are bad for the fire service that came out, as a result of this fire or around that same time. But I think many services now have adopted them and are using them. And along with correct programming, a lot of these changes that came out of this incident have made it more usable for emergency services. Dirk?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we are using the same radio system. It's a work in progress. Let's put it that way. But we did implement a few changes, and also based on this line of duty depth. So the push to talk button for us, I think it's 3 seconds. So you really have to hold it like intentionally, and then you only get a 10-second hot mic. Just enough to get your who, where, what out, not this whole Luna stuff, but just to make somebody aware. You still have priority over communication. So if the Mayday push to talk button, it cuts everybody else out. We're still not sure if that's something we should keep or not. We haven't, thank goodness, we haven't had that Mayday call yet where that would have been a problem. But those are all things to consider, right? And you kind of, for the programmers, you have to tell them what to do and what you want. So, yeah, it's a work in progress. But based on these line of duty devs already, I think we're having a pretty good system right now.
So yeah, like we're talking, the third recommendation was the city's radio communications systems division requested Motorola research the following features in order to shorten delays and improve emergency radio communications. A quick key bonk created transmission complete tone. So when someone unkeys the radio, there's a beep. Different tones created for out of range warnings versus a busy signal, and timeout of 5 seconds if there's no audio. That's what we basically just talked about. The department. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
The timeout thing, I think that was related to, they discovered that the cable from the radio to the microphone, some of them got burned through, resulting in an open mic, and therefore they couldn't use the radio system because one of the injured firefighters' radios was on. They weren't talking, obviously, but it stayed on. Where now they added this: if there's no audio, it times out after 5 seconds and releases the channel to other people to talk. And that was a huge issue in this call. And that's that whole discussion of how you should wear your radio and where should the cord and the mic be, under your turnout gear or over. And there's all kinds of debates about that with the radio strap, etc.
There shouldn't be a debate. It's under
no
the
debate.
coat.
It should be under your coat.
It should be under coat, and the cable should not be wrapped around your neck. That's
protect
there's really no. I know guys are debating it, but there's no debate. This is just, this is the way we've always done it. It's like, yeah, but if you want to die in a fire and not be able to, you not want to be able to communicate in a fire, and as a consequence you die, well, we've told you. So yeah, it shouldn't be a debate. But you're right, Paul. It is unfortunately.
And we got to buy you a $150 radio belt in addition to the $1,000 radio. But hey, whatever.
What's a life worth? Hey,
exactly.
What's a life worth?
Bucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Fire truck's a 1.5 million, and you're bitching about $150 for me? Come on.
times 830 per shift. Yeah.
No, it's per seat. So you need, on the 4-man rig, you need 4 radio straps. That's it.
It's the cost it is. Cost of doing business. You're right.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's $150 is pretty cheap on the firefighter department scale, right?
You're talking too much like a chief now, Paul. You're not a chief anymore.
Yeah, stop doing that.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay, number 4 was electronic command board was developed to assist incident command with tracking fireground assignments. which this is 2013. I'm sure by now 2022, lots of fire departments, especially the major ones. I know my favorite fire department in New York they're doing everything off of an iPad now. Like it's
Yeah,
the
I
way
played with
everything's
those in
going.
one of my postings. Played with the tablet command was the one I played with, and yeah, it's a slick tool once you get used to using it.
Doc, I've still seen New York using those big command
Yeah,
boards though, right?
They have that, and I think they have the same thing on an iPad and the
So
chief.
there's redundancy built in because you can't
Yeah.
just rely on the electronic command board, right?
Yeah.
And
What if
this
the
was
battery's dead?
and this recommendation was because they didn't know who was inside. They weren't tracking people, right? That's where this came from, is that whole accountability principle of incident command, which
Well,
is why they added this.
and command was changed 2 or 3, 4 times. So who knows when command got changed? If they said, "Oh, engine 51's here, engine 68's there,"
Which was the same thing we found in the Shirley Towers incident, where command changed so many times and they didn't have adequate accountability. They didn't know, we don't know what happened to the information, but there was some confusion as to who was where.
Doing electronically would get rid of all that. Where a new person signs on, it's all right there in front of them.
It's recorded already. Yeah.
So they reviewed and updated their RIT packs and their RIT procedures.
Interesting to know what they changed there. Yeah.
They took air in with them to RIT, but the hose in the RIT pack was too short to reach the injured firefighter who was still pinned under the debris, so they couldn't give them air. So now they've changed the RIT packs to have a longer hose from the RIT pack to either the mask or the transfill or something like that. So yeah.
Well, it should be as long as somebody's arm on average, right? Because if somebody's out of reach, then it doesn't matter if you have a 50-foot cable or a hose, you cannot reach him. But it should be a little bit longer then, yeah. Huh.
So that was the change they made.
They came up with a guideline on tracking the firefighter turnout gear after an LODD, basically keeping track of evidence and who had access to it and all that kind of thing. Radio prioritization was established that would give the district chiefs priority communications over all other radios on the fire ground. And it was not just that, I added this a bit, but it kind of gave district chiefs like first priority. I think captains were kind of second priority, and then everybody else was third priority. I guess the higher you are in the chain of command, the more important your message might be.
We talked about this here in the city to give somebody, because here we don't have the chiefs running the incidences, but the first arriving officer, to give them or enable them to have command function or overriding function. But I don't think we're there yet, because it's really like if you do change rigs, then I don't know if that would carry over into like a command vehicle, stuff like that. So I think we're still working on that one. I'm not sure if it's actually that important, but
the GRACE accountability system was upgraded. That must be the system they use. Not sure what GRACE stands for, but software was updated and additional training was provided to the incident command technicians, which would be the chief's aides.
That was the pass alarms that were not integral to the SCBA at the time. And that was another recommendation, is they had quite a bit older SCBA. They met NFPA when they were built, but they didn't have integrated pass alarms. Grace is a pass alarm company, one of the first ones to have one that transmitted if they, firefighter goes down or air emergencies, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's why they said, hey, let's make that better. And I think Grace actually even played with location systems, but I don't know that it ever went anywhere.
Yeah, I think that Scott had those pack trackers.
Pack tracker.
Yeah,
which is like a radio direction finder thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well that works and if they improved on the system or not. I always think like that stuff I heard about is like 15 years old. If I look at my cell phone that's 15 years old, it's like, we've come a long way. So you think that those systems would improve over time, but apparently not necessarily.
Well, and
The,
Scott has today and all the SCBA manufacturers I think have now where you tag on with a tag when you get on the truck at the beginning of your shift, and then when there's a fire, you turn your SCBA on, it tags on and it reports it to an iPad somewhere or an electronic device that's in the truck. And I think that's exactly what this is that, hey, so-and-so got low air or no movement or high temperature, and it reports it back.
Interesting.
The department's information technology unit began work on creating electronic personnel files. I'm sure that's all complete now, and most departments are doing it. Yeah. Internal disaster standard operating guideline was drafted to help members during these types of events, aimed at assisting members with decision making and overall management after a significant event has occurred that affects the normal day-to-day operations of our department. So new fireground communication procedures were developed to help reduce radio transmissions. Incident commanders were instructed to begin using additional talk groups or talk channels for support roles at an incident. Units that are responding to additional alarms or assigned to staging or rehab can be placed in a separate talk group. And the process was designed to reduce excessive radio communication on a fireground talk group. That's pretty straightforward. Keep the important transmissions on the one channel and the support stuff on a different one.
And during this time, I think one of the chiefs from Phoenix, who was familiar with the command system that Phoenix uses, took that to this department and tried to improve that whole fireground command and using scenarios for training and trying to teach people to be concise on their radio traffic in order to manage these really complex incidents. I know one of the recommendations was they had too many people under certain leaders, so they lost accountability, and that's what that all means, I believe.
Yeah, these sizes of incidents, I mean, you have to increase your command staff. Everybody should have a radio and have an assigned radio channel. Again, we do have the same thing. We got staging, we got rehab channels, all this stuff. The problem is like practicing that. That I think that's something. I'm not sure if Blue Card has parts in that where they change channels, stuff like that, as part of their training. But it also says reduce radio transmission, so that wouldn't be Blue Card then, eh?
Yeah, that's Blue Card, and that's like recommendation 16, where the training center began working on developed enhanced training in 2 critical areas: the incident command technicians and building collapse. And that the whole fire command Blue Card thing about standard procedures, standard outcomes, etc.
I love the standardization. What I don't like about Blue Card is, and don't get me wrong, it's a good system. The initial radio report, awesome. After that, this repeating all these messages, again, we want to cut down on the communication. And oh yeah, I understood you totally that there's a green fence and a white siding and there's a pitched roof on the one side. So yeah, I know, but it has to be said, right? Doesn't want to talk about it, Doug. He doesn't want to talk about it.
He doesn't like when you bash Blue
That's
Card.
another show. That'll be another show.
Yeah. The city's radio communication systems work to improve the infrastructure of the new digital APX system. Areas targeted were populated areas of the city and ones that generate considerable call volume. Other locations across the city are still in various stages of upgrades. Equipment was added or adjustments made to the system to improve the in-building coverage. They added some new communications captains to their dispatch center. Also, the dispatch staff members began a ride-along program with district chiefs to familiarize themselves with how things happen in the real world, not just at their dispatch console. The incident command technicians and there was a training center began working on developing enhanced training in 2 areas: the incident command technicians and a building collapse course. This one was interesting. There was a new city ordinance that was being drafted that addresses buildings with poor radio coverage. This document will outline new requirements that property owners and management companies will need to accomplish in order to meet the standards set for firefighter safety regarding in-building coverage. So they're putting the onus on the building owners and managers to make it safe for firefighters. They had a new training video with Scott on the use of their ticks. A new plan was implemented to have all incident command technicians become subject matter experts with the GRACE accountability system. Grant funding was secured to upgrade the mobile data terminals in each emergency response vehicle to tough pads. The shift commanders on all 4 shifts began situational awareness or building construction training. A committee was formed to evaluate a blended fire EMS response for multiple task level duties, including RIT. So having, I'm sure this means having the medics right in there with the RIT team to provide care to the downed firefighters, as opposed to waiting for them to be brought out, which is a good idea.
That's sort of like they're working in a lot of areas to have paramedics go in with the police for active shooter incident, right?
Yeah, I think that's very common, is that the tactical or SWAT teams have medics right there with them.
Not in Canada.
Well, in my city, it's very common. I think. Yeah, I think it's more common than you think it is.
Could be.
Yeah.
Most places where there's RCMP, they don't have integration from any other agency. Only in urban centers where it's not RCMP.
The RCMP don't believe that other agencies exist.
Maybe the RCMP has police officers trained as paramedics, but I got a question, you guys. Because it says the blended fire EMS response, that department is integrated, right? So every firefighter is also at the very least a EMTB.
Yeah, I think.
So wouldn't you think that in those task groups or even RIT or on the rescue that there might be a medic already?
Well, I mean, it said that as a recruit you get EMTB training, but so maybe this is talking about having the actual paramedics right there, and also, yeah, they're trained in it, but that's not their job. They don't have the tools and the bags and all that stuff with them when they're doing RIT. So they might want the people that are tasked with doing that job right there with them.
So basically assign an ambulance, advanced life support ambulance with the RIT crew.
Yeah, that's the way I read it. Yeah.
I think what happened here, they couldn't get the people out. They were pinned. And so they were trying to provide medical care inside the burning structure with, under terrible conditions while they were trying to get the wall or extricate the members that were trapped. And I think that's where this comes from.
I know, and I always bring up New York, but New York, they have rescue medics where right on the ambulance, they have full turnout gear, SCBAs, so they can go operate in the IDLH atmosphere and provide care right there while they're waiting for start an IV or whatever, while they wait for the people to be freed or whatever.
So this department, they don't cross over then? So they have the ambulance guys?
I'm not sure if they do or not.
Because that's the only thing I'm confused by, because I think I understood it over the course of 20 years, there should be enough paramedics on the fire trucks, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if they have just because they're trained to do it doesn't mean they have the bags and the tools and the IVs and all that stuff right there with them.
Yeah, but they definitely run into problems there. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know for sure, but most big American departments, you're assigned to a company. So it might be that the junior guys are on the ambulance and eventually they get assigned somewhere else. Who knows, right? But
maybe, yeah.
Obviously,
maybe you get promoted to a rescue company, and then you don't hold your paramedic certification anymore, or something like that. Sure. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So they added some headsets to the command vehicles to enhance the communication capabilities of incident command and the technicians and the accountability officer, which is probably a good thing to muffle out some background noise. The funding for the IFF Fireground Survival Training. Here's Paul's favorite, additional funding for Blue Card Command Training.
Blue Card saves lives.
Yeah.
Until you've taken it, you don't know. But I mean, I had some students this week actually that, it just cleans up the whole radio transmission thing and the procedures, and it's awareness of, don't go in the exit. Make sure you got a 360 or you get it done by somebody. So, and the other thing is the whole span of control. They had so many people reporting to single supervisors that they just couldn't cope with it. So those are all fire command, blue card, whatever you want to call it, recommendations, right?
Last couple here. The department introduced the first guideline that provides specific strategies and tactics for structural firefighting. So maybe
That's
before it was kind
interesting.
of a,
Yeah.
it was
I
just
think,
work, go back on your experience, or now they have this is the actual what we want you to do thing.
yeah, maybe are they talking about SOPs, SOGs in that first guidelines? Because I know there's still some departments that don't have SOPs and SOGs for the bread and butter house fire, bread and butter commercial fire. Is that what they're talking about?
Well, in reading the NIOSH report, they specifically address slicers and that they should be using the slicers procedures to evaluate, their actions. So I think that's where this is coming from, according to the NIOSH report, and of course based on the research. So flow path, of course, being huge. Where's the fire? The fire actually was in the back in the kitchen. They went into the front, opened the doors, and it got air from wherever. And it was a windy day, so it's going to get air. And then of course the fire burning for 3 hours is why it collapsed. They probably had enough water with that 2.5-inch hose to make a push, right, which was good. I know they said they lifted the ceiling tiles when they went in, which was great to see what was above them. But apparently they may not have used, or for sure the one person on 51 said they didn't use the tick to look in the upper areas above. Remember that from your tick training, right? Look, all around, above and behind you when you go in. That was, I guess, those are again those UL FSRI training things.
Oh, people still think you can look through walls with a thermal imaging camera. That's just not the case,
yeah.
right? So
they also recommended an upgrade to the SCBAs. So apparently their SCBAs didn't meet the more current standards, where the flame resistance was much improved. Oh, the masks, the flame in the masks, like many departments changed in about 2011, actually 12, to the more heat resistant SCBA masks after some firefighters had suffered a mask failure due to high temperatures. I know your department did that. I did that in my department based on what your department did. And I was pushing for that everywhere I worked, was let's upgrade these masks, buy new face pieces to meet the higher temperatures. And that's something that was in the recommendations as well, because they found that their masks may have, the integrity of the mask may have been impacted by the fire. The conditions
that would be a good
in.
kitchen table talk there, because I got my own thoughts about improving our PPE instead of improving your strategies and tactics. Because if it gets hot and your face piece melts, you should have a nozzle in your hand and open it up. But
yeah, it's true. And this happened post collapse probably, where now they're trapped in there, and of course, and there was new PPE available that may have helped. I think is kind of where they're going. I agree with you, Dirk. I mean, don't go in the exit. Do your 360. Make sure you got water. But it's easy for us to sit here and debate it.
But look what you just said. There's too much to spend $150 for every guy to have a radio strap.
I know.
And now you're going to be spending $1,050 on everybody.
Or new mask, yeah.
Every time there's a new mask that comes out.
Yeah.
So
all you have to say is open the knob and get water on that heat.
So the last recommendation we have listed here was the department scheduled a modern fire dynamics presentation to be one of the 8 mandatory multi-company drills for 2015. The presentation is a compilation of research conducted by UL, FSRI, and NIST. So they basically wanted to come up to modern fire behavior
and this is from years ago. There's even more now, but this is right after Governor's Island and all those research projects were done.
We know it's always changing because you never shut up about it, Paul.
I'm trying to keep you guys current.
And you know what, Paul? It would be great if fire departments actually follow through on that instead of waiting till something happens.
But it's hard to do.
Be a little bit more proactive. Yeah.
You guys have any closing comments on this event?
Another tragic event that was the result of multiple circumstances, although following those basic principles of the 360, of command having a good perspective, of good communications. So, standard conditions, standard actions, standard results, which of course comes out of my favorite fire command training program that I won't mention. So that may have helped with this event.
I think this is probably one of those things, especially with the 3-hour burn time before they got there.
Can't do anything about that.
You really, you could have done the 360 and all this stuff. If you don't see it, you don't see it, right? It's hard. I mean, obviously they made a lot of recommendations based on this, but really there's not one that would have prevented this from happening, as far as, unless you say, it's a commercial structure, we don't go inside. Right? That would be the only thing.
Or they don't go in against the wind.
But the collapse caused them to die.
Exactly. Yeah. The wind didn't cause the collapse. I mean, they still could have got in there and be trapped in the collapse, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, that was a good couple of shows. So thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Tell your friends and family about it, and give us a like or a thumbs up. And we'll see you next time.